Hey folks, welcome back to the show. It's Tracy here with Real Estate Excellence, and I have a best of the best. And that's what I promise to bring you every week. Amy Ransdell is an executive execution, transformation, and peak performance coach. She's an active real estate investor. She mentors real estate investors. She's an agent, trainer, investment strategist, licensed real estate broker, and brokerage owner and sales trainer, national speaker, and marketing leads for multiple companies. And she's going to have to explain this one: NLP, certified master practitioner, breakthrough coach. Bottom line is, Amy helps people get the most out of themselves. If I can summarize that, is that a good way to summarize it?
I love that. Absolutely. Yes.
Well, Amy,
Nice
welcome to the show.
do.
I appreciate you getting on with me today.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. This is your listeners, your topics that you guys cover is stuff that I love. So thank you.
Great. And we're hoping that an agent out there, or it could be actually really any field, be honest with you, hiring that coach. And if you talk to the people that have reached levels that you hope to dream, it's just not because they put more hours in. It's because they worked smart and they hired some people who may not even be smarter than them, but just help them, guide them through those next steps. So we're going to dig into that. But I want to first just jump off like I do every show. Let's get to know Amy. Amy, where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? Let's start there.
I grew up all over, but I ended up down in Georgia, and I've been here my whole life. So I always tell, most of my adult life anyway. So I tell people I'm a peach by, I was adopted. I'm therefore a peach. But I went to the University of Georgia, and I've just never left the state. It's home for me. So yeah, that's where I'm at. And I while I was here in Georgia, and I majored in everything in school. I was all over the place, and I ended up in real estate. So I'm the accidental real estate person, that wasn't the plan.
I noticed on your LinkedIn, you said you obviously went to the University of Georgia, and you didn't really kind of state your major, but this is the line that's in here, and I need this explained. Too many beers, too many majors, too many memories. What's that all about?
Well, freshman year particularly, I spent a lot of time on Lumpkin Avenue. If anybody, and there's where all the Greek system, the houses are, if anybody's familiar with Athens, Georgia. But I went to Georgia as a biochem major. Like, I had this real love for science. I still do. It's a deep running thread throughout my life. And I absolutely loved it, but I was also young and ignorant. And I thought at the time that a biochem major would mean a life of lab coats and fluorescent lights and petri dishes from now until I died. I couldn't imagine feeling so restricted. And so I was like, I can't do this. This is not what I want. And so I ended up trailing myself all over campus until I ended up in the art department. So I'm also a painting, printmaking, and all kinds of things. But I was, poli-sci, debate, psychology, and even theater sciences along the way. So I'm a forever student, and that actually has served me so well into all that has happened for me over my lifetime, because I just am this eternal student. I feel like we were created with this, brain to learn infinitely, and I just want to be a sponge and take it all in. And I'm so glad that I did that in school, even though my friends and family were a little confused.
Right.
For me, it's all served. So.
Well, it probably, you think about it, a lot of these people, we all, I don't know if no idea what the percentage is, but the people who have a major and never actually go into that field.
Oh my goodness.
At least you dabbled in a lot of different things, and they actually gave you a degree for it. So that might be beneficial. But I like the interesting statement there is continuing learning. And I personally feel I've gone through in my life several times where I've really purged into personal development. And I've noticed the times when I went in and like you said, learning, grabbed a book, whatever to read on whatever you're doing. And to me, it was, different personal development books. I saw myself change. I saw myself I feel better, and obviously keeping financial returns. When you say learning, kind of, is that a broad statement for you? Because you're not taking formal learning classes all the time. You're learning different ways.
Yes, absolutely. I think that, and I'm sure everybody's listening, we have things that we're passionate about, right? I always tell people, go pursue that to the end. I mean, I have a personal belief that, we were each created with this personal power, and the only thing we were charged with was to live to its ultimate level. And how do we do that? Well, we've got to go and find all the cool resources that are out there to do that. So from faith to network to knowledge to neurology and everything in between. And so that's been my driver, was to learn all the things that could help me live to an optimal way, that could help others optimize their lives, to not only have, paradigm shifting breakthroughs in their life, but, along the way to have, major performance output in whatever area of their life that was important to them. And what I found throughout all these studies, and really because of my own personal issues and challenges, was that there are so many things that hold us back from that, and that we can find ways to work through that the more that we learn and adopt that information. So to me, it's been a passion to solve problems, to open new doors, to create new connections, to understand with more depth who and what I am and all that I can be. And that's what we love to bring to others, and through all the things that we do here. But it's learning for a purpose, right? And whoever's listening, what is that purpose for you? And go learn everything you can to get you towards that purpose.
There's two things I think about when listening to you address that. I don't know. You watch David Goggins? Have you ever listened to David Goggins?
Absolutely.
He's an interesting study. Yeah, that's what gets me out of bed more. What would David Goggins do? And then I get up and go, go get my steps in and so forth, go work out. But the other thing that maybe is getting out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
Because how important is that for someone trying to rise to another level? Because when I looked at your resume, you were out coaching at a fairly young age, based on what I was reading, the things you're doing, and, shortly after college. And I can imagine some people are like, you're 26, 27 years old. What do you know? So actually, how did you get into that? Tell me how you had to get out of a comfort zone to do that.
Oh my goodness. Yes. In fact, my first corporate coaching experiences, I was, really young. And so you can imagine this short little blonde girl, and they would send me to work with older executive men that had been selling their whole lives to teach them how to sell better. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like really, that it was so exciting and empowering to have that experience, right? You talk about learnings about how people have worked their whole lives, but understanding that you could find those master keys that could help them adjust a pattern that they had been operating by their entire careers, and to be able to give them that one little nugget that changed the whole world for them, and where they were constantly plateauing, now they were breaking through to new levels, and yet they were twice my age, right? So it was an amazing experience. I'm so grateful for it, all that outside of your comfort zone experience. But let's speak to that for a minute. Neurologically, and even our muscularly, our bodies, our systems, we must stretch ourselves past our comfort zones in order to have new experiences. If you're constantly waking up every day and doing today exactly what you did yesterday and the day before that, then your future will look exactly like yesterday. It will never be different. And so when people come to me and say, I want more, or I want to get to another level, or I want to do this, or I want to do that, great, you're going to have to do new. You're going to have to be in a place you've not been before, and outside of your comfort zone, doing things you've never done before. And it might even mean having to adopt new ways of character and personality to be able to even do that. It's new. You can't want new if they're not willing to do new. And so I actually live by a philosophy of new. And in fact, my children, every week of the year, 52 weeks a year for 12 years now, we do something we've never done before on purpose, something we've never tasted, tried, heard, smelled, listened to, visited. Why? Because I want them to continually push themselves into the new, because when we do that, then it opens up creative thought, innovative thought, and it's impossible to be in a place of lack and scarcity and old and repeat pattern when you're always pushing yourself into the where you've never been before. So
right.
It's uncomfortable.
I battle a lot. I listen to people and analyze them like you do. As we mentioned before the show, I really thought I should have been a psychology major after really doing, because I find people interesting. But the scarcity versus abundance mindset, we hear that a lot in the personal development. They talk about that. Can you expand a little bit on what you see, from your clients or people who approach you thinking they maybe want your services of coaching or whatever, but they're really, how do you break them from having that scarcity mindset?
Oh my. So, I didn't expect that question. I love this question. So let's just talk chemically and biologically for a moment. Your brain is designed to protect you, number one, right? Your unconscious mind is designed to protect you. And in that process, it's going to create whatever evidence is around you to keep you safe and still. This is one thing to everybody to really understand that how the brain works. Now, it's a simple thing. It's a simple process, this whole survival thing that the brain does. And so it can really only work in one direction or another. And this is really important. So when you're in a place of lack and scarcity and fear, the brain can only work in whatever is going to pull you away from what you're afraid of. Like it's going to have this away from mentality. I'm just going to do just enough to get away from what's going to hurt me. It's not necessarily going to drive you towards a powerful, innovative, creative, and new things, right? It's not what it's doing. It's just protecting you, and it can only work that way. When you're in a place of moving away from the things you're afraid of, or even just sitting still, right? It's impossible for your brain to also simultaneously be creative, innovative, resourceful, solutions oriented. Those things aren't possible for the brain at the same time. And so this is why we talk to a lot of people when they're in this fear state where they feel stuck and their business is not moving forward or things are falling apart. You know, your external world will look like your internal world. And all of a sudden they can't find solutions for things. And they're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm in a fog. Like I should know what to do, but I'm not doing it. Okay, that's because they're facing the wrong direction. And I actually literally have people do this hallway experience with me where we create a visual hallway and we experience our body facing one direction or the other, and getting them to actually use their body to physically change their state from one direction to another so that they can do that actual anchor practice whenever they get stuck in any decisions or anything. Because when we can turn ourselves around and face all that's in front of us, all the possibilities and everything we're grateful for and abundant, then we'll be creative and resourceful. And so all of a sudden we're now moving towards what's exciting for us, and the fog lifts and all of the how presents itself. But you have to physically turn people around sometimes. So we do exercises, physical and mental exercises, to give people the resource or tool to use that for themselves, even if they're just doing it in their own head. It's a really powerful difference between one or the other, and just to understand your brain can only go one or the other. So if you want to do big things, you got to turn around and face towards abundance, great gratitude, and all. It's
a great analogy that one or the other, turn away, turn to the side that where obviously we want to go.
Yes, absolutely. If you're going to look at fear the whole time, you're going to experience fear. If you want to experience abundance, you got to face abundance and go for it.
Right. Excellent. All right. So slight change of gear, but obviously real estate is the underlying thing of all this things that you're doing, from coaching to virtual assistants and this great knowledge we just, expanded on. So I'm going to slight step back, but you have your own company. Is it VIA Real Estate LLC?
VIA.
Is it VIA? Is that okay? I don't know if it actually stood for something particular, but you've been investing yourself for over a decade now in real estate. So how did you start dabbling into that?
So I can't believe it's almost been 20 years, but I'm an accidental real estate investor. So I'm always very transparent about this end of it. I dated a guy, the guy was into real estate, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'm kind of type A OC, and he was spending a lot of money and investment on coaching programs and going to seminars and all this stuff. And he wasn't really doing anything with any of it. Like he wasn't truly putting it into deep implementation. And that just kind of drives a person like me nuts. So I was like, okay, well, I'll take over. I'll jump in. I'll do it with you. And so I stuck with it for years. I don't even know if he still does real estate or not, but I got the bug and I never looked back. It was definitely an industry where you are your own ceiling, right? There isn't one given to you. So you set your own limitations, which means that there aren't any if you choose for them to not be, and to really have the opportunity to grow within that. So we started investing. We did heavy investments between 01 to 08. 09. At that time, I got my license, and then I started building out teams. I've had several different types of structures over the years, from being a team to being my own independent brokerage and other iterations. And that ran parallel to our investing business. And so and eventually that's all led to, we actually run a coaching community that's a hybrid mix of licensed and unlicensed individuals working together. And in fact, it's real estate entrepreneurs is what it is. So you may be in the mortgage industry, you may be a financial planner who works with real estate agents. All of those come together to support one another from a coaching aspect and a mastermind aspect. And so that's been probably the most fun result of all that crazy experience, from flipping, wholesaling, short sales, retail, and all those things.
You just got the bug and got hooked on real estate. Yeah.
You know, seriously, like if anybody's on the fence to get into real estate and you're actually listening to this podcast, like go right now, sign up for a class, get your license, and dive in. Even if this doesn't become your full-time gig, it's still a powerful, powerful way to create wealth and legacy and create extra income. And honestly, it never does not serve you, right? So it's one industry you can really say that about.
Yeah, and it's one of those cornerstone things that we talk about in personal development, like surrounding yourself with the 5 people that you want to be like and learn and grow. But the greatest wealth, maybe you could take away the Facebook guy, but the .com type people, but real estate is in the portfolio of all these major, very wealthy, very well-known names. And the real estate. Yeah. Are you going to take some loss? You can take some loss on the stock market too. But over time, with doing the right thing, studying it, obviously, making the right investments, it's long-term wealth.
Well, that's it. You said something there. You said, you might take a loss. The thing is that the difference is if you're going to treat it like a hustle and a hobby, or you're going to treat it like a business.
Right.
All businesses are just they're KPIs, right? It's metrics on measurable metrics that we look at. And so it's not about making losses. We make investments for return, and sometimes we don't get the return we want, but we are empowered to make continued investments. It's really important.
Yes.
In fact, in our office, we're not allowed to use the words cost, spend. Like those are 4-letter words around here, right?
That's interesting.
They go in the cuss jar, because everything we do is an investment, right? Everything I do. And so if I'm going to work on a certain campaign or buy a certain type of property or whatever, I'm measuring the investment, and then I measure whether or not it gets the result that I wanted, and I learn from that, right? I love John Maxwell's, we don't fail, we learn, right? As leaders, right? So every lesson is a learning, right? Every failure is a lesson, right? So that's part of it, but that's a commitment difference between someone building for a purpose, for wealth, legacy, and business, versus somebody just kind of hustling and interested. That's the difference, right? And I can't give my license and to my kids as an asset to them, but I can give them property,
right?
Right? When I pass. So it's just really cool industry, end of the industry to be in.
You said something earlier, and I wrote it down while you were chatting there, because I didn't want to lose the thought. Going back, you mentioned your boyfriend that introduced you to real estate.
Yeah, I ended up marrying him. That's another story.
Oh, is that okay? All right.
He's not anymore, but anyway.
Okay. Your partner at one time, but knowing, studying the books, reading the books, I see this a lot with real estate agents, but this is everybody.
Yeah.
We are reading the books. There's obviously great YouTube, listening to a great podcast. We're learning. We have the knowledge, but how, and this is where you come in, to me, in my opinion, what a coach comes in, taking the knowledge and hitting the road.
Oh, that's the hardest part, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was just talking with a colleague about this morning. It's funny how the quantum world brings things back around for you.
Yeah.
Is that you can have all the tactical in the world. We have libraries at our fingertips now between Google and YouTube. I mean, there's nothing we can't go find an answer to. Isn't that cool? But the reality is, how do we go from that to implementation? How do we integrate the knowledge and even choose whether or not it's a fit for us? And this is where coaches do come in, right? And there is a difference, by the way, between coaches and mentors, right? A coach is going to help you take the forest and kind of whittle it down to a toothpick, if you will, to help you get very laser focused on what you are actually going after. Is it attainable? Is it truly in alignment with your values, beliefs, purpose, and why? A good coach is going to hold you to that. And then once that's decided, in a decision, that clarity point is extremely important. In fact, as a coach, we do a lot of performance work with people to help them get down down to the nitty gritty of their values, beliefs, purpose, and why before we touch anything tactically. And then we ask them to tell us, are they clearly decided now on what they want, and do they want it? Because coaching is no good if they don't, right? Now, then from there, we can coach tactically and hold people accountable to all of the how and all the steps, which sometimes is difficult. Discipline is not, an easy thing. Discipline is self-love, but sometimes painful, right? To help hold them towards the direction they want to go. And that's what coaches do. They don't let you slide, right? They hold you to the decision you said you wanted. They don't tell you what to decide. They don't give you answers. They help guide you towards what they are and then hold you to it. It can be the life changer. And I, as a coach myself, I also hire coaches. I currently right now have 3 different coaches in my life. I meet with one of them at 2:00 today, right? And why do I do that? I invest to help myself, because even I need that. I need someone else on the outside to help hold me to the decisions and the accountability to ask the tough questions along the way.
Obviously, you're a coach, so you're a little bit biased. So I think one of the number one things that people think I don't know what we're, obviously financial things coming to mind, but here you have 3 coaches.
Yeah.
And you not just one, you literally have 3 coaches that you're spending money with.
Yes.
And what are you, I can explain to us, the audience, if you can, how much faster, whether it was your learning curve or helped you make some decisions a little bit quicker to start getting that return on investment, because you invested in these coaches to help you push through these walls that you have in front of you, whether they're physical or mental walls to get through in your life. Can you expand on what that return on investment? Is it even measurable at this point for you?
Okay, first of all, I'll say this. I only do things that bring me value, right? So I will tell you, I already have evidential proof in my own life and existence that by utilizing a coach, I'm going to move faster towards my goal. Okay, but this is an important part of this. Anybody, you go hire a coach, you still will not get where you want to faster and bigger and 10x the results and more revenue, whatever it is your goal, unless you're choosing to have that result. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's not the coach's fault if you don't get what you said you wanted ever. It's not the program, the coach, or the book, or the course, or the webinar. It's not. It's you. Okay. And so I will say this is really important. When I go to seek out a coach for something specific, and at this stage in my game, I'm looking sometimes for somebody for a very specific reason, not just broad, life or performance coaching necessarily. But I'm choosing first that I truly want the result that I'm saying that I want. And am I committed to it? Am I willing to do whatever it takes relative to me? Am I willing to do whatever that takes to get to that result before I even allow myself to make the investment, right? Otherwise, it's a waste of the coach's time and my own.
Right. Yeah, there's just and in my experience as well, it could be, well, sometimes a mentor can come in and give you that one thing to focus on, because you have so many things in front of you. As I know in the loan officer world, as I'm sure as real estate agents, we got all the shiny bells and whistles in front of us, right? Oh, you should do this software. You should do this program. You should go to this seminar. What is going to move you to the next level? And that's where that coach is going to help you go through those things and really narrow down to what that next step is.
Yeah, we ask the tough questions, right? We ask the questions that we don't ask ourselves. Again, and this is why even I go get coaches, right? I need someone else to ask the questions that I won't ask myself. That's human nature, right? We'll avoid the tough questions. We'll get really busy to avoid what would actually help us be productive, right? We want to eliminate the things and we hold on to things. This is all human nature. And so having a good coach is going to ask you those tough questions to help you realize the truths that will actually help you either take weight off of you or help guide you in the direction you're wanting to go. And it's essential for us to have that. Seriously, how many NFL teams do we know that have won Super Bowls that didn't have a coach? Right. And
some of them specific positions have specific coaches.
Yes.
Tom Brady probably has 2 coaches. I guarantee he has a coach and an assistant that follows up on him, as well as probably another coach that does you don't even see.
Well, probably a
And
nutrition coach, probably
Right.
a flexibility coach, probably like there's probably a whole team of
Mhm.
experts that are stepping into their area of expertise to help guide him towards the highest level of performance. And you were talking about somebody who's performed at a high level. You can not like the guy. I don't really care what
Yeah,
people's
but at
opinions are.
42 years old,
My goodness, yes.
yeah.
And he's done it consistently over and over and over again.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but there's huge lessons for all of us to learn from that. And a big piece of his is definitely his commitment and investment in himself and his own performance, which means
Right.
coaching.
So let's bring it around from the coaching, because I do still want to get into virtual assistants here. We got a little time.
Mhm.
I have a real estate agent, and we chatted a little bit about this before the show. That agent out there, they're starting to do well. At what point should they start considering a coach and break through? I mean, at what is your experience? Let's put it that way. How to answer that question is, when is the right time to hire a coach, or is there a right time? It's just, should someone just entering the business new hire a coach? I don't know what.
Okay, so that's going to be such a relative answer. And it really comes down to, really, truly, in my opinion, do they want the result they say they want? And I know this sounds like such an abstract answer, but this is the defining difference, right? Whether you're a brand new agent, like I know agents who brand new out of the gate understood the value of having support, coaching, and direction and immediately invested in it. And that served them very well. And then I know people who wait 2 or 3 years because they want to save the resources. And oftentimes those people were kicking themselves in their own butt later because they're like, well, I wish I had done this 2 years ago, right?
Right.
It just really comes down to how committed are you to the result that you want, and are you willing to invest in yourself to have that? That's it. Okay, it's a really clear thing, because we all know the people who are a very scarcity mindset and they're so afraid to buy business cards. Well, what if I don't get a listing? I can't afford what I spent on the business cards. I mean, they're just in such a what if, oh God, I can't do this, that
Right.
they're preventing themselves from the abundance that's sitting there for them. I mean, we're a giant ocean of opportunities, but you've got to go turn around and face towards those. And so coaching, is something that I believe everyone should have from day one, but you got to want it and be committed.
Right. So let's turn a little bit to Riva Global.
Yes.
You're wearing that beautiful hat on there today. Tell us what brought you into that in 2018, based on your resume, and what is that? Because you've got several things encompassing going on all around Riva. Tell us about Riva.
Yes. So Riva Global, which is REVA, which stands for Real Estate Virtual Assistants. It's been we're 8 years now total in business. And the CEO, Bob LaChance, I've known and done partnership stuff with him for almost 17, 18 years now, in all different types of projects. The Riva was born out of this desire, all of us being part of coaching masterminds and coaching groups, all of us doing coaching at a high level, building up some huge coaching programs, doing that, working with these clients and ourselves in our own real estate businesses, and hearing constant frustrations from people of trying to scale, trying to be more efficient, not being able to afford people that they can hire in their local office, but feeling overwhelmed. They're wearing every hat in their business. They're totally stretched. And then we would hear stories of people who attempted to hire virtual assistants to take some of that workload off and had bad experiences. And so putting all of that together, we're like, well, how can a company be formed? Because this is what good companies do, right? We find a need in the marketplace. We find somewhere that nobody else is filling that gap at a high level. And how can we do that? Right. So that's how Riva was born. It was like, how do we solve this problem and actually not have the bad rap and bad issue stuff we've been hearing about virtual assistants, give people an opportunity to bring in talent so they can scale their businesses, run things more efficiently, get their personal time back, not be so overwhelmed in their businesses. Because oftentimes, as you know, business owners will get to that point where we lose our joy. We'll almost become resentful of our own business because we're getting up on a Sunday to do bookkeeping and we'd rather be watching, cartoons with the kids or something. So it's right. Or we want to go golf on a Saturday afternoon with our guy friends, and instead we're doing, I don't know, we're posting stuff on social media. So it's right. And we feel all these shoulds and shiny pennies, and it's overwhelming. And so how could we give people the joy back in their business by providing them real support that's talented and dedicated to them, and solve it with virtual assistants, which are 1/3 to less of the cost of a hire in office generally, and not the challenges that we've been hearing with virtual assistants generally in the marketplace. And that's what we did.
So dig into that a little bit. I think it's obvious because, I've done a little bit of research and I understand what you're saying, but not everyone would understand that statement that you did. The virtual assistant being less expensive than the obvious hiring somebody in the office. Because if I understand the virtual assistant, maybe you only need them for 4 hours a week.
Right. So at Riva Global, our virtual assistants are dedicated part-time or full-time hires. So they do become a team member for you. So there's a little bit different commitment thing with Riva, which is why we actually excel as a company. So our virtual assistants are in the Philippines almost primarily, and they are highly dedicated, college educated, screened. We do disc profiling, predictive index, all kinds of things to create a match.com, if you will, process of putting our client with exactly the right fit of virtual assistant. And then we help as a team engage with them and their virtual assistant to keep that a truly beautiful experience all the way through. Some of our clients have had VAs for 6, 7 straight years, the same virtual assistants, right? But the cost difference on average being that it's an overseas virtual assistant who's in some ways better than us at things. I mean, I have VAs that work for me personally that are so much better than me. They run circles around me from a talent perspective at what they do. But the same cost of hire on US soil would be extremely high compared. So now I'm able to get a lot of hours per week dedicated to my business by a highly talented and dedicated individual without the same price tag. So now when we talk about making an investment for a return on investment, right? I have the ability to do that and mass scale.
So what are some of the tasks that your virtual assistants can do? I mean, from a real help assisting an agent?
Yeah, so if we're talking like to an agent, for example, first of all, there's unlimited tasks that virtual assistants can do. So I always start up here and say, listen, 90% of what you do is done on a computer or a phone. Right. So that means if 90% of what you do is on a computer or a phone, that somebody else can do that for you. That's the first thing. I try to get everybody into that mindset for a minute, because we try to hold on to things and say, well, nobody can do this but me.
Right.
So we got to get past that hurdle. Okay. Then we can dive into tasks for transaction coordination, contract to close coordination, listing marketing, property marketing, listing appointment preparation, open house marketing, property management. I mean, it's endless what virtual assistants can manage for you. I have an executive assistant virtual assistant of one of the many that supports me personally. For my brokerage team, he's the one handling all of the administrative stuff for that entire team. Like, I don't do any of that.
Right.
It's great. I'm able to pull back away from that. We have another virtual assistant that does all of our nurturing marketing, like an ISA. Like, they're doing all of the touch-based marketing, running the text message campaigns, the RBMs, the emails. They're making all that's going out. They're making outbound calls all day long. That's all he does to our lead base. So their lead base is constantly being nurtured. So there's just so many things that you can take off your plate. I mean, imagine it this way. If listings are your strength, let's say you're a real estate agent, and listings are your strength, and listings are where ultimately you make the most money for your business. What if you could go on listing appointments all day? How much money would you be making? If you know that you convert 1 and 2 listing appointments to a listing, and you're only going on 1 appointment per week because you have all these other things weighing you down that you have to do. Well, what if you took all of that off, and now you could go on an appointment per day, run the numbers, right? You just added another 6 figures 2-3 times over to your bottom line for the year simply by taking off some of the tasks.
But Amy, they're not going to be able, when they call the client or call the possible client, they're not going to be as good as I would be in scheduling that appointment.
Yeah, get over yourself. Right? I mean, and no joke, like, this is important, whether you hire a virtual assistant or someone in your own office, right? That's a mindset thing. When we think nobody's going to do it as well as us, we're in our own freaking way. And the reality is, listen, Coca-Cola isn't 1 employee. right? Amazon's not one employee. How did they get so big? They got big because they worked with people. If you want to expand your bottom line, you're either going to hit the ceiling of what you can do yourself, or you're going to need to bring people onto your team, right? Virtual assistants can be just as good as you. And to use some Gary Vee language for a minute, although the appropriate end of it, right? He's talked about this many times. I love when he talks about it, that when we bring people on, they're not going to maybe care as much as you, but they're going to care as much as you as the leader encourage them to care. So law of the lid, it's on you. If you can get them to care and be excited and hold them accountable and nurture and grow them as a team member, then they're going to get results for you. And it's on you to continue to measure that, right? And not every hire is the right hire. And so then you find more talent.
I've heard it on several podcasts, and, you and I see, eye to eye. You're definitely, from my standpoint, preaching to the choir. And the agents have to realize, as well as loan officers, because obviously I'm in that field and I'm studying that side of the same thing that you're talking about, doing just for the agent in this case. The reality is, when you're making the phone call, that's a $1 an hour job. It's dollars an hour. When you're out doing that listing appointment, you're talking hundreds of dollars an hour.
Right.
Because if you nail that listing appointment, how many hours you're actually going to spend on it? Right now, houses are being sold in our area in a couple of days, full asking price, sometimes over. So how many hours did you actually spend? So yeah, if you could just double the amount of listing appointments you're doing now, that's changing your zip code. Okay. You're in a total, because you're worried about what that possible client may think. But the problem is, you're able to reach, who knows, many, many more people. And you only need a few a month to really live great in our world of real estate.
Absolutely. So you get that exponential win, and you feel better. I mean, there's a personal benefit and reward to this too. You're not nearly as exhausted, stretched, and overwhelmed and going in 10 different directions every day to chase the shiny pennies and the squirrels, right? So it definitely will make you more overall. Will they convert as high as you? No, but you'll talk to 10 times more people, right? So overall, you get the reward. You said something really key there. I want to just point this out to people, and I always love to point this exercise out. First and foremost, people will say, well, I want to make, they'll come to me as a coach, and I'll say, well, how much did you make in gross commission income last year? I always have this little thing they fill out, right? And I'll look at that, and then I'll say, and what's your goal for this year? And they'll be like, well, I made, $83,000 last year in gross commission income. This year, I want to make 500,000. I'm like, okay. I see that kind of thing all the time. I'm like, okay, well, that's not, I'm not saying it's not attainable, right? But it's going to definitely mean doing things differently.
They write books about that when they're done.
But then I'll have them show me, I'll have them track their activity for 2 straight weeks. And I have them show me all of the things that they're doing. And I will go through and I'll highlight, in red and green, the revenue generating activities versus the ones that aren't. This goes all the way back to my 20 years ago corporate history. And I will show them that. And I'll say, okay, well, these things in red are $10 an hour, $15 an hour activities that can be done by a virtual assistant. Because here's the thing, if you want, a $500,000 looking bank account at the end of the year, and you're doing $15 an hour work, your bank account will look like someone who makes $15 an hour, period.
Yeah.
This is the law of physics. We have so many hours in the day. I don't know about you. If you have a special arrangement with God to give you more hours, let me know.
Exactly.
So it's just, but that seems to be what it is. Another good exercise is saying to people, that listing appointment that you said is worth hundreds of dollars, right? Well, what if 500,000 is your goal? How does that equate back? If you took off a month of vacation for the year and only worked 35 hours a week, let's just be hopeful here, right? Come back to say, well, what is that per hour that you're actually generating? Right. And then ask yourself the question every time you sit down to do something, is that a $300 or $400 or $500 hour an activity? Because if it's not, you can't expect that income goal for the year. So, give yourself those, again, what do coaches do? We point out those things. We ask those tough questions. So,
we could go on, I think, for a little while, for hours longer, but I think I definitely would love to have you, definitely come on the show again, 6 months, a year from now, and you just continue that, because it's so valuable information. There's so many great people, and I'm sure, you want to reach out to and coach, because they just have so much more potential in them and can change. Because we all want to, I think we all intrinsically, and real estate agents are generally giving people, they generally like to be involved in charity and so forth. And that, to take your income from 83,000 to 183,000, could you, donate some more? Could you, and it's not really more time. And that's where I think one of the other things that we didn't really dabble into, people are like, oh, if I'm going to try to make 200,000, I got to work twice as many hours now. Now, that's not true, because there's coaches out there that'll guide you on how to still keep it in a reasonable week.
Oftentimes, and those that are listening to what he just said, right? Yeah. Wouldn't it be great to help even more people? I mean, think about the lifestyle for your own family. It's not about working more. It's about working more efficiently. And a good coach is going to help you decide on all the things you can eliminate, get out of the way that you don't even need to be doing at all the things that aren't going to take you where you want to go. And they're going to help you think of the ways to more efficiently accomplish the same goal, which virtual assistants, everybody that works with me ends up adding virtual assistants to their team, because they start to realize the value of that and what it does for you. It's not about working twice as hard. It's about getting greater results for less effort. And hey, by the way, that's what we all go into business for, isn't it? Because isn't that the dream? Well, I'm going to go be an entrepreneur so I can have my freedom.
Freedom. Yes.
Right. Then we don't go get the freedom. We trap ourselves, and we're working 20-hour days, and we're stressed, and we're sad, and we're frustrated, and we want to give up. And by the way, those are the clients. We most of the people who end up working with us are literally sitting at that little spot right there, where they're not happy with how things are. They know it can be so much better. They're watching other people accomplish these.
How do I get there?
The how, right? And so we have to go through that transitional process, which is both internal and external and tactical, to take them there. But that's it right there. We don't have to work twice as hard, right? So if we can take that belief away, we'll go fill all that gap in with all the efficiencies to get you there. And one piece of that may in fact be virtual.
Amy, what's the best way for anyone listening to reach out to you?
Absolutely. I would love to connect with everyone. They've been trying to grow my Instagram. So we've been telling everybody to please find me on Instagram. It's Amy Ransdell _B Powerhouse. You can also go just email me, and the appropriate team member will work with you. It's amy@rivaglobal.com. Just send an email. One of a team.
And this will be in the show notes too, for everyone listening on the podcast. It'll be in the show notes as well.
Yes. Thank you.
But hey, I want to. Did I lose you there on the connection?
I'm
there.
here.
Okay. The audio. The video's off a little bit.
If
you are in Jacksonville, would you please look me up? I would love, if you are making some sort of tour in Florida, come by. I will put some butts in some seats for you. If you're swinging through.
Absolutely.
So please reach out.
Sure, absolutely. I would love to make that happen. And thank you so much for this. This was lovely. I so much enjoy just whenever we can create impact for others in a positive way. We are just all over that. So.
Definitely. Hold on. I'm going to just sum up the show here, folks. Amy Ransdell, Riva Global. You're going to take your game to another level, and the agents that are listening on, this is so valuable. And I'm sure you'll do a consultation, with them, and whether a coach or virtual assistant's even worthwhile for them at this point, but just have a chat with you here. So I'm going to sum up the show. Thanks again.